Welcome to Inside the Studio with Greg Wurth. I just received an exciting package from Steve at Inward Connections, and I'm very excited because I'm going to show you guys what's inside. So let's check it out. So let's see. This is the Brute 2 limiter that just was announced at AES in New York this year. And this is very exciting because I collaborated with Steve a little bit on this because his original Brute unit was very popular in the 500 series format. It's an optical limiter based around his VF600 op amp, and he uses Cinemag output transformers. And this is a reincarnation of it. He added a wet-dry knob and a ratio select, so you can use this for a lot more applications. So let's check it out and take a listen. All right, so here's the Brute 2 by Inward Connections. What's really cool about this one is he added a couple features from the original, which the original was, it's borderline legendary. A lot of people know about the Brute limiter in 500 series format. And I was talking to him and how it would be really great to add some features. And in order to do that, he needed to put it in a rack unit. So he decided to make a stereo version. And what he did was he added a wet-dry knob, which allows you to have parallel compression within the box, which is priceless. Another awesome feature is he added 3 more ratios. So classic mode is the original Brute setting, and then scary, crazy, and psycho. So what that does is it just gets more aggressive as you go, which is really cool. And as any stereo unit should, it has a link switch bypass, and you can monitor the gain reduction or the output of it. And each side has a high pass filter that will filter out 250 hertz and below, which is very useful. So the song I'm going to demonstrate is one that I used in a previous video by Jeremiah Mountain called I Don't Mind. So to start, I'm going to demonstrate the drum bus with the Brute 2. So I'm going to start in the classic setting and just show you all the parameters, and then I'll move on to each ratio, and you can hear how that all sounds. So you can hear how it started compressing, and you just add some makeup gain to make up for it. And so now that you hear the compression and what it's doing, I'll dial back the wet-dry knob so that you can kind of hear what that does. So the cool thing about using that feature is that you can really over-compress something more than what you really would do. And then when you dial it back, you can add some dry into it so that you can keep a little bit of that aggression but add some more natural dynamics to it, so it makes it a little more usable. So here, I'll show you how that sounds. So what you hear is, with it full wet, it takes away a lot of the attack of the snare and some of the kick. And it starts a little bit of pumping on the cymbals and things like that. And so when I put it about 50% wet-dry, it brings the attack back and it brings it more to life. And then when I bypass it, hopefully what you hear is that, it still brings a little glue to the track and it lets it pass through. And so now I'll do it again, and I'll add the high pass filter so you can kind of hear how that sounds. So I'll put it back full wet to start with, and then, okay. So hopefully you can hear the low end coming through. So that makes it a lot more usable, something like, you know, a drum bus where you need some low end. So you're letting the low end pass through and putting some wet dry, and you can really, you know, preserve the transients but glue the track together. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate the same thing in scary mode. So we'll start in bypass so that we can hear how it sounds. So right away you can hear how this gets a little more aggressive. It's pumping more. So let me dial in some dry into it. So again, it makes it usable. As soon as you dial back some dry, your attack is preserved and it sounds a little more dynamic, but it's still glued. And it's nice. And if you can see, I have full reduction on. So it's compressing, you know, maybe 5 to 7 to 10 dB. It's pretty drastic. I would never do that on something without a parallel knob on it. So let's do the same example again on crazy. So you can hear the distortion. It's heavily pumping. It's starting to crunch it up. So again, wet dry, and then we'll see how this makes that setting usable. So I had to add a little more dry than the previous. This is about 45%. But what you hear is when you bypass it, the drums sounded good by themselves, but in comparison to this setting, they sound a little dry and flat. This adds a little more attitude, which is, you know, that's kind of what you want. You want to get some movement and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate the same settings in psycho mode, which is my favorite setting. So obviously that's unusable and very distorted. But with the wet dry knob, we can dial that back and make that a usable sound, which is going to be very cool because I love distortion and I think a lot of us do. So let's hear that. So I think that's really cool. I think he knocked it out of the park with this because I was very adamant that, you know, the psycho setting should bring you to the brink of distortion, if not clipping and all that, because it, you know, it adds a lot of harmonics, and that just gives a lot of nice sparkle to the sound. And with this wet dry knob, it's just priceless because that brought that setting into a very usable state. And I think that's cool. So I can demonstrate this same configuration on the bass. And if you saw the last video that I did on the BX console, I demonstrated this same song, and I used the BX bass dude on the bass DI, but I'm going to go ahead and bypass the BX console and the BX opto that I used and just have the bass dude and the Brute 2, and I'm going to show you all the settings on the bass. So you can hear that's a classic Brute. That's one of my favorite applications, is to use it on bass. I love recording with it. I'll send a DI directly to it, and with the high pass filter setting on. You know, maybe I won't always do full reduction, but for this example, I want to show the drastic settings. So I'll just dial back the wet a little bit and show you how that sounds, and then we'll move on to the other settings. So, you know, what I love about this limiter, he just has, he's designed this in such a great way that it can really grab the signal and put it up front, and it just, it doesn't take away the dynamic feel of it, you know, which a lot of the older limiters and stuff, it would slow things down and your attack would go away. But you know, this with the wet dry knob now, it's just, it's perfect. So let's try scary setting on the bass. Okay, now let's try crazy. I think that's awesome. You know, a lot of my viewers, I think, follow me on Instagram, and I've posted a lot of pictures on Inward Connections gear, and a lot of people actually went out and bought the Brute limiter based on my recommendation, and people posted pictures and said, hey, check this out, thanks. So I feel bad because I think all of you guys are going to want to go out and buy this, because this brings everything to a whole new dimension, and it's really exciting. And All right, so let's move on to the psycho setting. So to me, that's worth the price of admission. It's really cool, and that's kind of exactly what I was going for. I wanted to be able to get some distortion out of this from these ratio knobs because I knew that you can dial back the dry and blend the two, and that's really cool. So now I'm going to go and I'll demonstrate the lead vocal.
Please pack your things and go, baby, you're not welcome anymore. I don't ever want to see your pretty face or you walking through them doors. God damn you to hell for all the things that you've done to me. All the lies that you said, all the wishing I was dead. I don't think you had a heart. I don't mind if I never get to see you again.
And okay, so the vocals is another one aside from the bass that this limiter really shines on. And I should mention that this really comes from the Vacrack limiter, which in the early 90s, Steve Firlotte and Steve Barker announced the Vacrack series, which was a modular tube units, and they put out this limiter that was just really amazing, and it was tube, and he basically brought that design in a solid state version, and people like Chris Lord-Alge and Eddie Kramer are known for using them on vocals, and so this has a lot of that same pedigree. So moving on, I'll demonstrate the scary setting.
Please pack your things and go, baby, you're not welcome anymore. I don't ever want to see your pretty face or you walking through them doors. God damn you to hell for all the things that you've done to me. All the lies that...
So, it pushes it right up front. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate the same thing on the crazy setting.
Please pack your things and go, baby, you're not welcome anymore. I don't ever want to see your pretty face or you walking through them doors. God damn you to hell for all the things that you've done to me. All the lies that you said, all the wishing I was dead. I don't think you had a heart. I don't mind if I never get to see you again. I don't mind 'cause I really can't forgive you for your sins.
All right, so I don't know if you can see that, but on the meter, we're getting like 20 dB of gain reduction, which is an insane amount. But dialing it back to 35, 40%, and then I had to bring down the reduction a little bit because my makeup gain tapped out. But you don't really hear it. It sounds super clean and nice, and that's kind of what you're going for. You want like a pristine sound with a little bit of grit. So let me demonstrate the same thing in the psycho setting.
Please pack your things and go, baby, you're not welcome anymore. I don't ever wanna see your pretty face or you walking through them doors. God damn you to hell for all the things that you've done to
that's full
me. All the lies that you said, all the wishing I was dead.
I had to back down the gain reduction for the makeup gain to be able to be matched when you bypass it. So just take a listen and see how that sounds, and then I'm going to back off the wet dry.
Please pack your things and go, baby, you're not welcome anymore. I don't ever wanna see your pretty face or you walking through them doors. God damn you to hell for all the things that you've done to me. All the lies that you said, all the wishing I was dead. I don't think you had a heart. I don't mind if I never.
So as you can see, this is an amazing unit for a lot of applications. My favorites are bass and vocal, but now that there's the wet dry and the ratio settings, you can use it on almost anything. So that's about it. If you go out and purchase one of these, please take a picture and tag me on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, whichever one. And I would love to see it in your studio and let me know how you like it. As always, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and also subscribe to my newsletter on my website. That way you're eligible for gear giveaways. I'm going to be announcing something very cool soon and you don't want to miss out. Thanks for watching Inside the Studio with Greg Wurth. Until next time. All right, so I showed you guys what this thing sounds like. I think it would be really cool to show you what it looks like inside. So, you know, if you know Inward Connections gear, you'll know that Steve Firlotte is adamant about, you know, hand building everything. All the circuitry is discrete Class A, so there's no surface mount components or anything like that. There's no corners cut. So if you take a look, these are Cinemag transformers on the input, so channel 1 and 2. And on the output, he also has Cinemag output transformers. And here's the optical circuits. And then a big part of the sound and the color is these VF600 discrete op amps, which there's 2 in the circuit. And they sound amazing. They exist on every piece of gear he makes. One thing I didn't mention in the demonstration, which I should have, which was a big part, is that all the pots on these are detented, so they're fully recallable. So that's it.